We have the Labour Party gubernatorial candidate for Lagos State, Gbadebo of Vivour Rhodes, joining us virtually. Good morning, GRV, and welcome to the Weekend Show.
Thanks for having me.
And also, just to say happy 40th birthday to you. We'll go straight to the
Thank you so
point.
much.
We have seen you gain and gather a lot of support in recent times, especially because you have put yourself out to run, not just once, but you've tried and now you've taken a step forward to go for the largest seat in Lagos State. Can you tell us three things you intend to focus on if you become elected governor of Lagos State?
So when I become elected governor of Lagos State, my focus will be on creating a statewide transportation network that is truly intermodal, that allows you to use water, road, and rail, not just to move human beings, but to also move cargo. On top of that foundation, we're going to tackle the housing crisis. And then a major spirit of the government or governance is transparency and accountability and openness. An open government where all our accounts, all our transactions are open to the public because, like I said, um, Lagos State prides itself on the amount of revenue it generates from its people. So there must be a relationship that is sacrosanct between the governor and the governed. And in doing that and opening up this accounts and transparency, you have a situation where we can actually get the best deals for the money we are spending and we can build trust again in the system with the people of Lagos State. If you so those are you asked for three things, but obviously Lagos is extremely underserved. Lagos State is ranked as one of the worst cities to live in the world in terms of livability. So you can imagine we need to do a lot more than three things. But with the foundation of those three things I've mentioned, Lagos State can actually start to work again. But we need to invest heavily in our healthcare. We need to invest heavily in our education system. And when I say education, I'm also talking about giving people employability skills, vocational training, not just people in school, but people outside of school, lifelong learning, and ensuring that people are constantly equipped with the skill to be able to make a living and to be able to, not just earn a minimum wage, but earn a living wage. And the skill set that they need to achieve this is something that the government is going to actively be creating avenues for people to get.
Okay. Now, there are lots of threats on social media regarding the governorship election, attacks on voters, and all of that. Now, I would like to know, particularly in Lagos State, actually. So, how can this electoral violence or threat of violence on the day of the election, how can it be curbed, or what have you done so far to avoid that?
So, when you are dealing with people that are not civilized, because for me, a civil way of handling your people's displeasure is to actually govern well and make a difference in their lives so that when election season comes, they vote for you willingly. I think it's extremely barbaric that you underserve the people, you completely harass, and you even have state-backed terrorism because that's what it is. Um, and then you do not serve the people, and then when it's time for election, you intimidate and try to suppress them even more. So that is a barbaric type of government. I guess you can call it an agbureaucracy. And this is what we're trying to change. So I cannot speak for what they are going to do. I can speak for what we are going to do. We're coming to this election with security systems and security architecture that's going to resist any form of intimidation or harassment, right? We're not going to take it. We're not going to be bullied. We're not going to be intimidated. And we're going to ensure that all our supporters are going to be safe because we're going to make sure we have our resistance team at every polling unit, at every ward coalition, at every local government coalition. So that's what we're doing in terms of that.
Okay, Jeremy. So I listened to you on the I Said What I Said podcast just this week, where you are talking about incentivizing this bureaucracy, these people who have no option but to be used by the political elite for thuggery, election suppression, and the likes. So there's a huge informal sector in Lagos, and a lot of
Yeah,
them have to settle for whatever they can get because of unemployment and
yeah.
poor conditions in the state. How do you plan to incentivize these young people who you are saying should stop being agberos and thugs and being used by the politicians? What's
Yeah,
in it for them?
so first of all, we must create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive in Lagos State. Lagos State currently runs like a mafia type government that just does shakedowns for people that are potentially making any profit. Multiple taxation, stealth taxation, and just collecting from people. So we need to create an enabling environment that's business friendly, a government that is pro business, that wants you to succeed, that wants you to work as a stakeholder in your success. So that's the first thing. In achieving that, you then start to create a huge amount of opportunity for employment. Then, on the short term, we're going to get all these young men per local government, right? Engage them, create stakeholder engagement and employability skill acquisition programs domiciled in local government level. As an architect and a contractor, I find that if I need to do finishing, tile finishing, POP finishing, even screening of the walls, I have to go and get someone from Togo or Cotonou because the young men in Lagos do not have the skills to do that kind of finishing. So there must be a process by which we give them these skills. We show them that, listen, this avenue of monkey the walk, baboon the chop, just collecting from people and the government turning their eyes another way because they want to use you during political season is done. Welcome to deliver excellent governance, and we believe that in 4 years' time, the people will vote for us based on merit, not based on intimidation or suppression. So we are not going to weaponize their poverty and weaponize their vulnerability. We're going to give them avenues to get skills, and it's domiciled at the local government level, whether it's vocational training that they want to do, whether it is construction, because a lot of work is going to be done at our local governments, and we're going to need as many hands as possible. And more than anything, we need hands that are domiciled in that local government, so it creates a circular economy, and that money stays in that community. So we're going to give them those skills, employability skills for food programs, ensuring that they also do skills that they're interested in, right? And this is a continuous program. And we then create incentives for companies that are going to get contracts in those local governments to employ these people, right? So that there's a direct benefit for the skills that they've gotten.
Okay, so I would like you to share, how do you plan to serve? A lot of politicians, it's popularly known that they get into that position and forget that it is not just a job, but it is a position of leadership where you are to serve the people. So how do you plan to serve the people of Lagos State if elected?
Okay, I believe that service is in actually implementing the policies and moving policy direction forward for the benefit of the people of Lagos, right? Um, One of the indicators would be to ensure that Lagos State starts to become number one in terms of ease of doing business. That in 4 years' time, the livability index of Lagos State, based on the current people that take these forecasts and take these numbers, it rises. Then we know that we're serving the people of Lagos. But more than anything, it's about being responsive. It's about being grounded. It's about being in touch. And that's why part of my government policy is to ensure that we have systems of feedback loops where I'll be there. I'll have a radio station, and every week we're talking about it. We set an agenda, whether we're talking about Ifakojai healthcare or inner roads in Ifakojai, and people can call in and give their ideas and complain and express their desires for their local government. And then on Friday, I'll come on and talk about it and give a situation report about how far we've gone on those things and the reason why we're making certain decisions. All of this is carry people along and keep your hand on the pulse. Another way that we're going to achieve this is by having a rotational government where the seat of government will move for in between the four divisions on a monthly basis. So you can feel the pains of the people there. The people can feel that their governor is with them. People can feel that their governor is in touch, and to work directly with local government chairmen and local government stakeholders, because that's the only way that people can feel governance all the way down to the grassroots.
Jeremy, talking about the grassroots and governance, I recall seeing a video of Governor Sanwo-Olu about 4 or 5 years ago at Social Media Week Lagos, and also at one of the debates where he spoke about clearing the traffic, especially at the Apapa ports, and also getting rid of some of these trucks that cause a lot of traffic in Lagos. You are an architect, and so I also know that you've worked with the Chinese government and also with the United States on communities and urban planning. How do you plan to tackle the issue of the congested ports and traffic situation in Lagos, saying that the previous governor had made promises until today. These problems still remain, also with trucks now even falling on people and loss of lives on almost a monthly basis in your state.
Yes. So there's a long-term and short-term plan which must go hand in hand. Currently, the federal government is having a rail system that's being done from Apapa to Eputemata. So the state government is going to invest and create a platform for a lot of barges to come into our system that will then start to move goods to Ikorodu and dry ports. So that's one angle of it. Second angle of it is the call-up system that they did, but then it later just went to it just crumbled, right? And I believe that was because of inefficient stakeholder engagement. The call-up system, I believe, is a very good solution to this problem, but the human factor in it did not allow it for it to be successful. So we're going to re-engage with the stakeholders, ensure that everybody's interests are carried along, to ensure that that process works. We're also going to partner with Ogun State and start to create trailer parks, right? And to also create a process by which the stakeholders, all the individual ones, because what is the problem right now, aside from the bad roads, like when you look at that Gomu road and how it also destroys the cars and also destroys, sorry, the trucks, and also creates a situation where the trucks are then falling down and killing people and all of that. There's that situation, but it's a chicken and egg situation because heavy loads are going on our roads, they're spoiling the roads, and then the roads in turn are spoiling the trucks, which then leads to containers falling down. So we need to get these containers off our roads, and that's with dry ports and also a rail system that carries cargo. That is more the long-term solution. But the solution, the short-term solution that we must engage in now is a drastic state of emergency situation with the stakeholders that are part of that call-up system, that are part of that whole process, because there are a number of people that benefit from the mediocrity of the system. You find that it's cheaper to bring in goods from China to Ikorodu, to the ports in Apapa, than it is to move cargo from the ports Apapa to Ikorodu. Right? And that's because of the many people that are collecting money from these containers, from these drivers, from these trucks. Now, we need to come very aggressively against that because that is also anti-business. And you have a situation where, at the end of the day, it's the consumer, it's the people of Lagos that bear the brunt of this cost, right? And Lagos is already very expensive to live in. Right, so we must find a way as a government to reduce all these costs that are ancillary costs that then add to logistics costs that then is topped up on the product. So for us, I've given you three solutions. One, federal government is about 65 to 70% done with the rail that's connecting Apapa to Eputemata. So we're going to encourage that. We're going to work with them as stakeholders to ensure that that works more. And then the dry ports, government also investing in barges to bringing more barges into the system to move goods to Ikorodu and to even Badagry as well, to other dry ports across Lagos State to decongest Apapa. Third, call-up system, we're going to look into it. Why did it fail? What's the human factor behind this failure? And address all of that. And lastly, to build a statewide transportation system that carries cargo. And that's more in a 4.5 year plan.
So, Jerry, let's talk about something which is happening with the young people right now, and it's called the Japa culture. Everyone
Yeah.
is leaving Nigeria because it's either they've got the academic qualifications, but they don't have jobs, or if they have jobs, they are underemployed, or they're not being paid, or they're not being paid enough. And so today you have a Femi moving to the UK because there's a global tech talent visa. You have an Uche moving to Canada. You have a Musa moving to Ukraine to do medicine. Meanwhile, Lagos is the economic capital of the nation. Lagos has been able to stand strong regardless of the issues which we've had in Nigeria. Is there any room to keep our talent within the country or even ensure that diaspora remittances are increased during your term as governor if elected?
Certainly. Once there's good governance, you'll find that Nigerians will come back. I mean, when I graduated from MIT in 2008, that was the height of hope in Nigeria. And all my friends I went to school with, friends that were at Harvard, everybody moved back to Nigeria, right? We believed Nigeria all the trajectories were upward, and everybody wanted to come back home because there is no place like home, and that's not a cliche. Now, good governance, openness and transparency, an enabling environment for business, and a government that focuses on its comparative advantages. For instance, Lagos should be the hub of culture, of art, that's attracting people from all over the world. It should also be the center for commerce, ease of doing business. You should be able to come to Lagos and you don't have to go to Alausa to get things done, right? And by the time we become number one in relation to ease of doing business, you can get your C of Os, you can get all your documentation, your paperwork fast, right? Businesses will start to thrive. And once we get rid of all this stealth taxation and the idea that the government is competing on the private sector, as opposed to creating an enabling environment for the private sector to actually do what they can do, which they also do a lot more efficiently, then you start to see that the government has created opportunities. And Lagos State in itself is extremely feasible because it is underserved. There are many problems that in the solutions of it will create a lot of wealth, right? And you'll find that a lot of people come back home. But most particularly, the Japa system is affecting our tech industry, relation to our banks, especially the back end of the banks, is affecting our healthcare delivery service. So the government is going to be extremely intentional about recruiting talent from all over Nigeria, right? Because we have a huge population here that's very underserved, and we need to start to meet our doctor to patient ratio. And unfortunately for us, other countries in the world are very deliberate about taking talent out of this country. So we must be very intentional and deliberate by giving people perks and giving people a roadmap to becoming truly middle class. And also appreciating their work and understanding that there's an opportunity cost to them being here. As a government, when we show this appreciation, they get paid salaries on time, we increase their salaries, right? And we're going to do this by blocking all the current loopholes. People, companies like Alpha Beta that are generating taxation, that are not where our LIRS is actually doing the work. Those loopholes are going to be closed. Those monies are going to be used to increase the quality of life of civil servants, of doctors, of teachers, because they are the ones that are going to create the lifeline for this society, for people to actually appreciate and feel the presence of government. And we need to focus on getting to a living wage, not a minimum wage. And by doing this, we create more opportunities and create a situation where people don't feel, people always still travel, people always still chase opportunities and dreams, but it should be okay for people to stay here and live a quality life.
So we've been talking, and most of the benefits from what you said obviously covers the whole of Lagos State and all the people there. But particularly when it comes to children, what are your plans, briefly, for the out-of-school children, those ones we see roaming on the roads, across the streets, all of that? Because education is a sector that has been suffering for years. In fact, since before I was born, because of a strike. That's how bad the education sector has been in this country. So what are your plans for those children that are not in school? They're just begging on the streets
Yeah,
and at the end of the
yes,
day
yes,
turn to vices.
yes. Thank you for that question. We must look at for us, our government, myself and my deputy governor, Professor Yufusi, we're looking at this as a continuum, and we're also looking at it as a social safety net that must exist in Lagos now. You see, 2 million children out of school. What is the state of mind of their primary caregiver? There are lots of men that just abandon women with three, four children. They just abandon them, just leave. There are no consequences. There is no welfare support that's given to these women. What is the state of mind? If a woman has to get ready to go to the market to sell, to make a living, a woman is selling pure water and her children, she doesn't have the presence of mind to groom her children to be able to take them to school, right? These are things that are contributing to this. So we need to get data on on women that are recently widowed, on women that are divorced, so that social services can be implemented to give them the support that they need. Because on the long term, the opportunity cost to the state is huge. Like you just said, you leave children and they become idle, and then they start getting into vices, and then they then become the criminals in society later on, who then contributes to the lack of safety and then contributes to investors not coming into Lagos. and tourists not coming into Lagos. So that's the opportunity cost of the state. So we must nip it in the bud as early as possible. So that's one. Second, we must invest in our education, invest in recruiting teachers, invest in paying salaries that are living wages, not minimum wages. Invest in changing our curriculum to a knowledge-based curriculum that has a practical leaning and practicalize the knowledge that they get in so they understand the effect and the application of this knowledge. You see, what we currently have in Lagos State is a situation where people are cramming knowledge. They are not understanding the application of it. They are not being trained to be productive members of society, right? It's more of a you go to school, you get a job, and then you come out and you consume. There must be an emphasis on making, on understanding how things are made, a curriculum that appreciates history and grooms people based on the values that we want to see in our society 10, 20 years down the line. And this
Jarvi,
is
I
where
think
education.
Jarvi, I think that's a brilliant place to leave it, especially when you talk about investing in our education. Because of time, that's much we can take. But wish you all the best in your campaign
Thank
and in
you so
your
much for
election
having me.
next week. We will hold you accountable. We hope to get you back on the show if you win.
Yeah.
And for all you
All
have
right.
promised, the people of Lagos are expecting you to work and for you to serve. All the best and good luck in the elections.
Thank you so
And
much.
also, it would be helpful to advise all your supporters and followers to remain calm and ensure that there's peace during the election. Same way we expect the same thing from all opposing parties. Thank you very much, GRV.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.